the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Thanks for joining us, folks. I'm Sam Lesante. Folks, what's happening in the greater Hazleton area? What's happening in our communities, not only here in Hazleton, but all the surrounding areas? Today we're going to have a discussion with the Mayor Joseph Yannuzzi and our police chief in Hazleton, Frank DeAndrea, talking about things that maybe are on your mind and some of the questions that you had. We had a show that's still running. It was about downtown Hazleton, and we had a number of people on the show talking about what we have accomplished here in Hazleton, the positive things, okay? And you always get some questions, and we understand that. But today, I'd like to discuss some serious matters that we have and how we've progressed in the last number of years. I want to welcome Mayor Yannuzzi and Chief DeAndrea for coming on the show. I had lunch the other day with Neil DeAngelo Sr. and his son and my daughter, and we were talking about different things. And Neil said to me, Sr. said to me, he says, you know, Sammy, he said, we have great people in this area. He said, I've traveled all over the world, and he said, I'm telling you, this is the reason why I believe in this area. We have beautiful people, they're hardworking people. He said, that's why I took our company, and it's big, and made the major investment in downtown with the 3 bank buildings, and still many more things are happening in downtown. And I said to Neil, I said, Neil, the young people have to get involved, okay? So it's very important what we have in city council, what we have as a mayor, what we have as our police, okay? So with that being said, the questions I hear about you, Mayor, okay, is that, you're thick-headed. If you don't do what he wants to do, he cuts you off. You don't go to city council meetings. Why aren't you going? Are you afraid to go? And all this stuff. So let's discuss those things.
Okay.
Why is it that you do not want to go to city council meetings?
Because I don't want to be the object, the subject, everything. Everything points to me when the council starts. They condemn me and my staff, and that's not what the purpose of their job is. Their job is to make legislation. This government was formed with 2 bodies, council and administrative, the executive session. We are the ones who run the city by what they approve on council floor. So they don't run the city, which they tried to do. And I'm trying to separate it. Go to your council meetings, have your council meetings. That's why it's called a council meeting, and do what you have to do. They try to go into the administration and pick items in dollar amounts, and that's not their job. Their job is to make legislation, and they haven't done that in the 10 months that they're here right now.
You were a city councilman.
Definitely, yes.
Okay, and how did you work with the mayor when you were a city councilman?
Well, I had a good relationship with Lou because I ran my meetings professionally. My meetings were short, sweet, and to the point, and we ran them strictly for legislative purposes. Lou came to our meeting mainly because he presented something on the agenda or he wanted to be involved. Fine. We didn't abuse him in any way, and he just kept coming. But the law says that I have the option to go or not. I choose not to because I want separation. Now, I haven't been there for almost over 3 years. I haven't been to a meeting. The city is running. Matter of fact, better than it was when I was going.
So the question that you have is this, okay? I've been accused of always supporting you, Joe, and supporting Barletta. Well, the fact of the matter, and then I'm your cousin and all this other stuff that happens, and I understand that. We could play some games to a degree, but we, the Lesante family, made a major investment in the city of Hazleton. We believe in this town. The DeAngelos and a lot of other people who've been here. I mean, the Felons and Jimmy's Quick Lunch, everyone. I don't want to miss anybody because there's been some great people that want to see the city move ahead. And I always agreed to disagree, okay? I was chairman of the board of the college, and we had disagreements. People didn't like me, and even today, if they don't like me, they're throwing up things that happened a couple of years ago that I, did this, and So it's always personal. They never put things down and say, let's work together, okay? So they don't like Joe Yannuzzi, fine, but let's work together. It's affecting our town.
Yes. Nobody has more invested in this town than I do. When I came back from out of the service, my father and I went into business together. That was over 50-some years ago. And everything I've done has been in the city of Hazleton. I've owned several major companies in the city of Hazleton, you know them, and they've all been in Hazleton. All my employees, all my payrolls, everything was in Hazleton. My gamble was with Hazleton. And then when I retired and became mayor, my gamble is still with Hazleton, and I'm trying to see what I sacrifice for to continue. And I think we're doing a good job as far as the council. Their side of it is I'm not. My side is I'm doing a very good job.
So let's talk about the job. Let's talk about it's 4 years of December 16th. What have you accomplished in the city
Well,
hall?
when I went into office, no fault of the previous administrations, I have to say that they were losing money, and the reason they were losing money is because they didn't have the ability to raise the taxes. They were locked in for like 35 years at 25 mills, and the assessment was stagnant. I get in, they do reassessment, the opportunity to increase the taxes to pay for what we have. I had to make those choices. They're tough choices. They're not popular choices. And I made those choices, and we are now almost even on our budgets. Our audits are coming in. Well, this audit for 13 will be really good, I think. From losing, a million and a half, not a million and a half, $1.5 million to maybe $100,000 or $160,000. That's going to be great. And this year's budget, the way I'm told, is we're online so far at the end of the year to be really close to that. That's never happened in the history of Hazleton. If you go back through all these budgets, there's never been a surplus. My first year, we had a surplus for several reasons, but we ended up with a surplus for the first time in must have been 2 decades.
You said something, you had to make decisions that are hard sometimes, and sometimes unless you sit where you sit, and when we talk to Frank, believe me when I tell you, I could imagine what he sees every day to protect the citizens here in the greater Hazleton area. What would you say to the council? Putting personalities aside, you mentioned, he's a bum there. Putting all that nonsense aside, people are tired of that stuff. They want to see what's going on. They want look at downtown Hazleton. When we were going through this development down here, it was a pain in the rear. I mean, you had but look at it now. It's all done. It's complete.
Right.
It's beautiful.
And that's what it takes. It takes patience. I admire the businesses, and you were one of them, that were downtown during this 4 years. When I think it was my first week in office, we broke ground. And we're just finishing up now. And like I said, I'm almost 4 years in office, and we're just finishing up the project. But it was worth the wait. Some people had to suffer. Some people didn't make it. But the ones that did, I think, are really pleased. And I think it changes the whole perception of Hazleton when you drive through the city of Hazleton. It doesn't look like the dim lights, the broken and black sidewalks, macadam, whatever, brick and everything else. It's so designed so well that you can drive right down Broad Street, no problem. You can get to where you want to go and get back out again.
I don't want to be negative, but I want to bring this awareness to the viewers, okay? And this affects every city. When George Hayden wanted to buy the building, okay, the Marco building, okay, you heard, it's never going to happen.
Right.
He's crazy,
Yes.
and so the Hayden family believed in the city. And look what happened to the Hayden building,
Right.
okay, and how it developed so nicely. It's almost 100% occupied.
Almost.
Then you had, the streets are a mess. It's never going to be. And look at how nice the streets are. Then you had the Angelo brothers coming
Yes.
down, and then instead of now there are a lot of positive, but there are always a negative. Instead of coming around and supporting them, we have the Downtown Alliance now, okay, with Neil D'Angelo
Right.
Jr. and Krista Snyder. They're doing a fabulous job, okay?
Absolutely, yes.
This is good for the community.
Yes.
You're never going to do everything right, Joseph, okay? I'm going to disagree with you in some areas, but let's agree to disagree. Wouldn't you think?
Yes, Yes, the DeAndreas are making a great investment in the downtown Hazleton, but you have to set your eye on the goal. You can't be distracted by the naysayers, or they'll bury you, because they're the only ones that really speak out. The ones that are enjoying it are just plain enjoying it. The ones that hate it are just finding excuses to be negative, and that you can't have. It knocks you off track, and I put my sights on the goal, and that's where I'm going.
Folks, I'm talking to Mayor Joseph Yannuzzi. We'll be talking to the police chief. Do we need more cops in the greater Hazleton area? Why is it so important that we get more cops on the street? I think most of you know the answer, but we're going to get the real facts when we come back right after this break. Stay with us. Hey folks, thanks for staying with us. I'm Sam Lesante. Welcome all those people that were in the Mono area, Shenandoah area, all the new viewers we have in Shenandoah. Welcome, and thank you for so much the nice responses I'm getting from the Shenandoah area. And you know, we're down in St. Clair, etc. So we really appreciate your comments. The website 24/7 ssptv.com. My email sam@ssptv.com. My guest today, Mayor Joseph Yannuzzi, and the police chief, Frank DeAndrea. Frank, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Once again, Frank, let me congratulate you and your police force for doing an outstanding job in this area. Every one of your policemen, women, whatever, they are absolutely doing a great job. I would not want to be a cop today, no matter what you paid me. And so I just want you to know that. And that's a fact.
And the praise and thanks truly goes to them.
Seriously, they are in harm's way every day. So let's go back to what is happening now. Prior to the show, we're talking about the awareness factor, what's happening, the outrage that's happening, and why we need at least 10 more cops.
Well, the perfect example of what I say is the public's recent recognition of what's going on. I still wear, every member of my department still continues to wear a mourning band in recognition and memory of Corporal Brian Dixon with the Pennsylvania State Police. And it was our decision to not take those mourning bands off upon the time of his internment, because we feel as a police department, it's just too easy to say, okay, well, the corporal's buried, let's go about our business. It's sad that it takes a cop to get shot or killed for the public to become so outraged to wake up and say, what is going on here? We need to do something about it. And I say the last time that happened was November 29th, 2006. 2 Hazleton City police officers were ambushed on Shaft Road at Cedar Street. 2 of them were shot. The city wakes up and says, what is going on? If people will ambush and shoot cops, what will they do to the rest of us? And so that again in 2006, the city got 10 more cops. It brought the city police department to a number of 40. We're now at 37 cops in 2014, and the crime is more than doubled in the city. So the public becomes awakened to the fact we really do need more cops. We can't be safe with the number of cops that we have. That's where we are today.
So what do we do? The community knows the more cops you have, the presence, I think, deters crime. I mean, not that you're going to have crime. I mean, people say that, you know, you'll listen to our news, pick up the standing speaker and see who was robbed, banks robbed, etc. And then say, well, Frank said our town was safe. You know, how do you respond to that? You know?
Well, the fact of the matter is, you will always have crime to some degree, but no different than anything else. We need to take steps or efforts to make things better than we have them. The perfect example is when General Kane marched into town with 15 undercover officers adding to the police department, and in that period of 6 months, we arrested over 158 drug dealers. You give me extra cops, I'll show you what we can do. Right now, it starts to trickle back to the fact that the un- or non-law abiding community, the criminals, recognize it's like gambling. I'm going to take my chances in Hazleton because I know the cops are so busy, I'll probably get away with this crime. Now, what you see when we solve a homicide within 24 hours is what happens with those serious crimes where we take what I call a full court press. We take every officer, we put them on that detail, cops work overtime, the detective unit works around the clock, we get assistance from the district attorney's office, the county detectives, the state police, the DEA, the FBI, you name the law enforcement agency within this community, and they're here in Hazleton helping us. They're helping us for a lot of reasons. First of all, because we have great partnerships. Second of all, we can't do it on our own. But what happens is, what the city doesn't recognize is, yeah, we could solve a homicide in 24 hours, 48 hours. We spend so much money on overtime because we don't have the staff to do it. So we can do that, but the secret is, how do we remain or get a status quo where it's safer all of the time? There's only one way to make it safer. I've been saying this for almost 3 years that I'm the chief of police. The city police department is grossly understaffed, and we are to the breaking point mentally, physically, with the strain that constantly being mandated. You're forced to work 2 shifts a day sometimes because somebody was sick, somebody got hurt. So you came in at 7 o'clock in the morning, thought you were going home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm fortunate enough to tell you, we can't get somebody to fill the next shift. You have to work 16 hours today. Somewhere along the line, I'm hoping the community will support the Hazleton Police Department with all of those. We support HPD and recognize the only way for us to keep the community safer is to add to our complement.
Before I get to the mayor and finding out where you get the money, let's talk about, there's been a tremendous, a lot of activity in the code enforcement because people are going around and fill us in on what's happening with what you're really doing, okay, in code enforcement. And Mike Wilfling, again, and his people,
Sure.
all his people, I don't want to single anybody out, but doing outstanding jobs.
Absolutely. And again, not because he's sitting next to me, but this is another of the mayor's initiatives. I mean, before he was the mayor and I was the chief, the police department had nothing to do with code enforcement. He came one day and said, listen, I'd like you to supervise code and health. It makes sense. And so then we get somebody in there, part-time I might add, Mike Wilfing, phenomenal resource. The man will forget more about code than I will ever be able to know. And he comes in here with fresh ideas, some of them from New Jersey where he did a lot of code work, others from just his knowledge, and we start to put some of these into play. The mayor is able to come up with saying, we could hire 3 part-time people. And so we bring them in. And those part-timers are out on the streets every day writing quality of life citations, enforcing the code. They're working around the clock, well, not around the clock because it's only 8 hours a day, but they're working in City Hall constantly. You constantly come to the window, they're answering phones, they're into the computer system. It seems to be a really great flow for the people who come to City Hall needing something done. But I think the city's starting to notice a difference also with at least the beginning of the difference. Soon it'll be an exponential raise in just how much difference we could make. But those code enforcement officers, the health department, are out there every day. They have some really good guidance. Mike has some irons in the fire, some new ordinances that we're going to be looking at, some new ways for the city to make money, some new ways for the city to save money. So the city is certainly on the uptick.
Mike is a no-nonsense guy.
I agree.
He is a no-nonsense guy. When he says he's going to do the job, he does it. Folks, I'm talking to Mayor Yannuzzi and Police Chief DeAndrea. Let me just, on a personal note, we've been here a number of years, and we all are always in downtown Hazleton, except for a few years we're in Hazel Township. And I got to tell you, the perception, I'm not going to knock on wood. We had a lot of people here. We park in the back, we walk the streets. Never had any, I'm knocking on wood, any incident whatsoever. Perception right now is get rid of that perception. Downtown is beautiful. We have a lot of nice restaurants now. You know, the Pines open up at the Marco. We have Jimmy's. We have Leonard's. We have a lot of places. Beltway. We have a lot of great places down Hazleton. So get that perception. Now, can it happen? Yes. Thank God so far nothing has happened. We come back. Where do we get the money to get the police? Stay with us. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. Remember my email, sam@ssptv.com. Always enjoy your constructive criticism. The people who are sending me letters without signing their names, I'm not reading them, folks, but sign your name and we'll address them. Mayor Yannuzzi, how do we get more cops in the interim? Because I know it's not going to be on the ballot,
right.
You know, and we need to have more cops. What do we do?
The only thing we can do, and the only way we can raise any money is through a tax. And that's why I wanted to ask the public how they felt by getting a question on the ballot and they could vote it up or down. And I didn't get that opportunity. It was supposed to be a month before the ballot goes out. They changed it to 45 days and I missed it by 3 days. So it's not on this ballot. It could be on the May ballot. But I got such a good response from that. People are telling me that they're willing to pay for police. So we're going to take a hard look at it and see what we can do. But there's no other way of getting it but through tax.
What do you need for 10 more cops? What would?
Well, we felt about $1 million.
$1 million you'd
$1 million,
need.
right. But that might not be the exact amount, but that's basically what we have to put in. It's going to be close to it. And that would be good for the 4 years till these guys get up to the 100%. What I have to get straight is that this tax would be put on and could be changed. Once it's on, it's not on forever. It can be maneuvered, changed.
What kind of millage would we be looking at?
We're looking at 1 mil.
1 mil.
1
Now,
mil,
Frank brought an interesting point up. Frank, when you get 10 more cops, even though it's $1 million, it becomes revenue bearing too as well?
Yes.
How does that work?
We're hoping that would generate, and then we could adjust through the years. As they generate revenue, maybe we could reduce it, maybe.
Yeah.
But I never like to say reduce anything. I like to go in with a good number to begin with.
One of the big questions or that everybody was asking was, well, what about all of the other things except for salaries and workers' comp and the taxes? The fact of the matter is that right now, on average, for the last 2.5 years, the police department has brought $488,000 into the city of Hazleton each year in revenue generating. That $488,000 comes through fines and tickets. The fact is, very simply, basically that's the patrol section. My detectives, my narcotics unit are not out writing tickets or arresting people for DUI or violations that bring in fines. So the patrol section's 23 people, 24 people. If I'm adding 10 people to 23, that's almost half. So if you look at the numbers themselves, you should say, well, if you brought in 488,000 and I added half more, I should be bringing in $200,000 more. If you just take a conservative number of $150,000, that will more than pay for all of the extra things that come with hiring 10 more guys. An additional clothing allowance to outfit them, additions to training, leasing of another vehicle or two to cover the cost of more people. So all of the extra stuff will easily come from the revenue that 10 more cops will generate. The one thing that I stress is, if the police department is fortunate enough, if the city is fortunate enough to get 10 more cops, I guarantee you one thing. You will know you got more cops. You will see traffic enforcement, the stop sign violations, the speed limit enforcement, the window tinting, all of the things that add to your quality of life can go away because you have a traffic unit that's out doing nothing but that. The foot patrols that people are constantly asking for in the business districts and all around town will be able to be accomplished. There's no doubt in my mind you'll drive through downtown Hazleton. You will not only see a beautiful downtown, you'll see cops.
And I'll tell you, to me, it's a win-win situation. I could just see cops walking up and down Wyoming Street, Alder Street, Broad Street. The different, the communities going into the communities. I think, Joe, it's a win-win situation. But they get the money. That's the problem.
Getting the money. We arrived at 10 because it takes 5 to fill a shift. Mm-hmm. So we figured 2 would fill 2 shifts, which means that there would be 2 extra police on every shift. So that's why we got to 10. But actually, the police chiefs have come up with a 2 for every 1,000, and we have 25,000 people. We would need 50 police. So if we added 10, we'd be at 48, which would be pretty close to what we need to make this happen.
I think, Frank, the impact alone that you just said. Okay, I didn't even think about that, but the impact alone, the visibility, and the fact that, when everyone's saying that they see all this stuff happening, well, these poor cops are working like crazy. I think the city would feel much better.
The city would be safer. It won't get rid of crime.
Yeah.
So please don't think we get 10 more cops, there'll be no crime.
Yeah.
What I would like to end with, if I could please, is that the day that Corporal Dixon's killer is caught, we will take these mourning bands off of our badges. But what I could ask the public is, please, everybody asks, how can we help? What can we do? Don't let Corporal Dixon's death be in vain. There's one thing that we can do for our own community is use that to say we're getting more cops here in Hazleton and we're going to make this town safer in honor of him and to better our own community so that never has to happen again.
Well, I could just say this. It was so sad. A young man like that with 2 children. And these cops today, the state policemen, hats off to them. Believe me, I would not want to be a cop in a million years. I applaud them. They leave with their wives and their kids. Will my daddy come back or will my mom come back today because there's some wacko out there? Joseph, I wish you always the best. We have a major interest here. You have a lot of great people that are looking positive. And listen, the council, hopefully, they'll do what they have to do, and I'm going to have them on the show. I want to put the personalities aside. That's the thing, I don't want to hear he's your cousin, he's your this. I don't want to hear that stuff. I mean, it's so nonsense. It's ridiculous, okay? That's the problem. If you don't like Joe Yannuzzi, put that aside. Look at things constructively, okay, and then work at that particular point in time like you do when you're doing police work, Frank. Thanks for coming on the show, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Remember, folks, 24/7 ssptv.com. We'll see you next time.